Hey guys, Sundown here. This is going to be my chapter review to One Punch Man 133, Glorious Being. Now this was another banger of a chapter from Murata. Here we go, let's get right into it. So the first scene, let's call it Tatsumaki versus Orochi, or just, I think it's pretty much just Psychos at this point. But yeah, so Tatsumaki versus Psychos. The chapter starts off where we left off. Tatsumaki evading Psychos' earth-busting beams, and what I loved about this is actually how we got to see Tatsumaki's decision making. I think I underestimated her capabilities in the last chapter slightly. You got to see that in the podcast. Go check Grim Reaper's channel, and you got to see it on my channel as well in my review, where I definitely underestimated Tatsumaki's capabilities at least slightly, considering how much she's thinking through every move and how she thinks about every other person in the vicinity. I think that's weighing down on her quite a bit. So the fact that she's still doing as well as she is, considering all of that, is quite impressive. And what I thought was funny about this part especially was how she thinks King is leaving the enemy to her because she's a better match and not because he actually can't do anything against the enemy. I thought that was pretty funny. Another awesome moment we get straight from the get-go is the tsunami. We spoke about the tsunami last chapter, and it actually comes through. I didn't think it would, but it does happen. The only thing about the tsunami which I had an issue with was it was pretty much a non-issue, once again showing that I've underestimated Tatsumaki quite a bit, and I was hoping it would be a little bit more like, oh my god, this tsunami, look how big it is, or something like that, but really not an issue for someone like Tatsumaki. She pulls some humongous boulders out of the ground surrounding the harbor which the tsunami was about to hit, and this leaves a gap in the ground large enough to swallow the entire tsunami, saving hundreds of lives, all done with close to no effort on Tatsumaki's part. So she's an absolute beast. And it really goes to show once again how large these boulders are that Tatsumaki pulls out. If it was able to swallow a tsunami, especially a tsunami that was a result of part of the earth crashing down on the rest of the earth, she really took out some solid landmass using her abilities there. And using those boulders, actually, Tatsumaki rains hell on Psychos, trying to pulverize her with brute force. Now, props to Psychos here. Not only does she blast away a good few of the rocks using that kind of earth-busting beam, she also breaks through them in close quarters without actually taking any damage, even going so far as to roast Tatsumaki and kind of prod at her a little bit, saying, is that all you got? So true tank behavior on Psychos' part, but I knew something was up when we saw Tatsumaki's devilish grin and the double spread of her tornado of terror around Psychos. I thought that was pretty cool, and this is basically the same thing as Saturn's rings, and it looked awesome as hell with like all of this smoke, all of this dust, but also these gigantic ass rocks just flinging themselves within this tornado. It's absolutely awesome. And we see another glimpse of Tatsumaki's intelligence here as she flings all of these rocks towards Psychos. Tatsumaki's goal was pretty simple. I need to get below Psychos and infiltrate her from within. So she set up this huge distraction with rocks and smoke and danger constantly surrounding Psychos, allowing her time to do this. So I thought that was really cool, really intelligent, and I like getting to see more of this thinking side of Tatsumaki, more of this cerebral side of Tatsumaki, rather than the pure brute force, straight kick-ass version of Tatsumaki we usually get. We got to see Psychos unleash a new ability here, the ability to sense the power of another living being. I'm pretty sure this is something that's specific to psychics. I think so. I think she might not only be able to sense psychics. I'm pretty sure. Actually, she might only be able to sense powerful psychics, now that I think about it. There was nothing kind of highlighting the existence of other beings, but then again, she was looking up towards Tatsumaki and not downwards towards everybody else. But it might be depending on like how much power they have or something like that. So maybe only heroes and people of the hero class. But she was able to use this to identify where she thought Tatsumaki was, and as I said before, Tatsumaki rolls up below Psychos, and limiting her power output so as not to be identified, she actually travels through the fleshy roots of Orochi, of Psychos even, eventually gaining access to her body. And with this, she uses her telekinesis to completely wring out Psychos, what would have been a really brutal death if not for Psychos' mad regenerative capacity. So just something here that's really important is the fact that in my last chapter I said that she probably wouldn't be able to just go in and brute force someone like Psychos. She's going to need to find a weakness and then make use of that weakness to then go ahead and clap her. And that's pretty much what this chapter was. She'd identified a weakness. She was like, alright, I got to get in from the base. And that's exactly what she did. So I hit the nail on the head right there, I think. We get to see some more of Tatsumaki's decision making and why she did the things we see. She pulls out the infiltration squad, happy that it's safe enough to do so without Psychos pestering her, now that she's obviously absolutely destroyed her. And the reason she didn't pull them out before was because she wasn't sure whether she would actually be able to make it through Psychos' roots without being identified and put in a barrier or something, trapped in a barrier, rendering her useless. So then the next scene, which I've named very creatively as always, the changing of the tides. Tatsumaki underestimates Psychos' regenerative capacity and gets both of her hands stabbed through by those twin black spears that Psychos has. So finally Psychos actually uses those. I think she's only ever used them once beforehand. And her barriers around the rest of the infiltration squad, this is Tatsumaki's, they all vanish, leaving them to fall or just stay wherever they are. We get this really funny scene where we see a Puri prisoner falling down on top of Atomic Samurai, and all you get is Atomic Samurai's covering where Puri prisoner's junk is supposed to be. So I was like, oh damn, like I feel bad for you, bro. But Tatsumaki then gets deep fried by Psychos, sorry. Again, I'm pretty sure she's done that to her before, but we see that Psychos' true body is actually in that little pine cone shaped contraption thing we've seen a few times, and you'll see it on like the last couple pages before we get to the Saitama stuff. I think it's the last page before the Saitama stuff. We see this little pinecone shaped thing beneath the huge body of Psychos, that huge shining body of Psychos. That little pinecone shaped thing, that's where the true body of Psychos is. That's the kind of weak point in the video game terminology. But as opposed to her huge hollow body, Psychos' true body is still a grotesque kind of fusion of herself and Orochi. And we actually see that she's taken quite a bit of heavy damage to her physical body. So she's not been entirely safe while Tatsumaki's been unleashing hell on the rest of her. We then have Psychos preparing this huge beam from her torn apart chest, getting ready to send Tatsumaki to her death. And this was my favorite part of the chapter, I think. A huge energy beam knocks away Psychos' beam, freeing up Tatsumaki once more, and the beams explode in the sky, possibly outside of atmosphere, I think, and the explosion looks huge. And I'd love to know what Tatsumaki would have done if that had hit her point blank. Like, would she have actually made it out of that? I'm not so sure, but there have been a few times now where I've underestimated Tatsumaki and she's shown just how powerful she is. So I'm not sure. I can't say anymore. Either way, we get this epic build-up where we see Genos with blue lightning trailing behind him, scaling this ginormous tower in order to save Tatsumaki. And you can argue save Tatsumaki or really just make time for King and Saitama. But whatever it is, he leaps out, and with his blackened arms, he prepares his own energy beam. And this panel got me so hyped. It looked so good. Even if he's constantly transformed into contemporary art pieces, Genos adds a hype to One Punch Man that very few characters can. So when I saw him leap out and getting ready to unleash that thunder drill cannon, I was like, oh, this looks amazing. And the panel where we see Genos' lightning dragon staring up at Psychos' behemoth body as they both prepare to erase the other from existence, it looks so badass. It looked so good. However, Genos' thunder drill cannon is only strong enough to deflect Psychos' energy beam, something which shocks him as this is his last resort move, something he can only actually keep up for 10 seconds. And we get some sass from Tatsumaki here. She questions, Genos, why the hell are you here, bro? And Genos just tells her, it's his duty to buy time for Saitama, it's his duty to buy time for King. This is what he's going to do. He's the apprentice. So rather than actually questioning him or continuing to argue, I liked that Tatsumaki doesn't even question this. She's like, all right, cool. She prioritizes extracting everyone from the Monster Association in order to continue her fight unrestricted. So Genos continues to fire his monstrous attack while firing smaller beams to nullify beams fired by Psychos' little dragon heads. And Genos is releasing some serious power right here. And as mentioned before, he can't keep this up for long. He can't keep it up at all. So this is meant to be a one-time kind of meteor-destroying attack. So in a battle of attrition like now, he's at a serious disadvantage. So Psychos, on the other hand, seems to be perfectly fine releasing this much power continuously. There's got to be some sort of cap, but she hasn't reached it just yet. Tatsumaki is going to have to step in and bitch slap Psychos. Otherwise, Genos is going to have a really difficult time of it. The chapter ends with Psychos addressing Genos and Tatsumaki, angry at them for defying Psychos. It looks like the little beam battle ends here, which will hopefully give Genos a chance to recharge and maybe even rethink his strategy, maybe think of another awesome attack to unleash that might be better suited. Meanwhile, Saitama, Flashy Flash, and the Toilet Monster remain trapped, with Saitama and the Toilet Monster providing a level of trollery that's making Flash reconsider his life choices. With that, the chapter ends. I really want to see more of Genos and Tatsumaki versus Psychos. I got so hyped when we saw Genos. He had such a harsh quality with his brutality that it adds another level to this already brutal fight between two monsters in their own rights. But let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in a bit.